Hey there YouTube, it's Gores here, giving you guys a budget deck profile, structure deck challenge for the new Fallen of Albaz deck. This deck is absolutely insane. Today, me and some guys at the shop were playtesting it. It beat Pile, it beat Based, it beat Blue Eyes, it beat Phantom Knights. This deck is actually insane. The fact that you can just spend the money on 3 structure decks and build something as consistent and powerful as this is crazy. So I actually have it built even with a side deck, so we're just going to get right into the deck profile and show you guys what we're working with. So first off, we're playing 3 copies of Fallen of Albaz. Fallen of Albaz is just the main engine. That's why the deck is called Albaz Strike, so you have to run 3, especially because it's a budget version. In normal branded lists, of course, they're just going to run the 2. But in this version, we need 3. Next up, another starter we have is 3 copies of Spriggan's Kit. Kit's just one of those combo starters for us. It really just lets us go burr because we get to search for our branded fusion or any other card that we're missing for our combo. And we can even special summon it if we already control a fusion to just be able to continue popping off. Next up, we're running 3 copies of Brigade Mercuria. This card is so strong. Being able to negate any monster effect while we have our fusion monsters out, and then also whenever it gets banished, it searches for an albaz monster, is just super good. Like, being able to just pitch, negate because we have a fusion is just way too good in my opinion. Next up, we have 2 of the Golden Sword Soul. The Golden Sword Soul is just super strong. It's actually pretty slept on. So basically, if your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can summon it and negate the attack from your hand. And if you control a fusion monster, you're going to destroy that monster. And a lot of people don't account for that. And even if they do, it's one of those cards where your opponent has to play like, if you have it, you have it. And it also has an effect in the graveyard that if a monster is banished while it's there, you can summon a spellcaster light monster from your graveyard with same attack and defense. So you can summon back your your effect failure. So that's pretty decent because it can just soak up more and more attacks. Next up, our consistency card, 2 copies of Albion. Really enjoy this card. You can reveal it in your hand to send a branded spell or trap to the graveyard. And some of the branded spells and traps just allow you to banish themselves and add back, or just reset themselves. So this card's really good, and it also lets you put itself on the bottom of the deck if you activated it from the hand in order to draw a card. Or you can summon it to your side of the field, and this is just a 2500 beat stick. So it's really good. It's also treated as Fallen of Albaz, which is pretty important sometimes. It comes up a lot. So for the rest of our hand trap package, we're running 3 copies of Ghost Ogre and 3 copies of Effect Failure. We're actually running a going second variant with this, so maxing out on the hand traps is pretty important. Ghost Ogre can stop Fateful Adventure, and Valor can just stop a lot of stuff right now, like Halka Fibrax and stuff like that. So it's pretty important to max out on both of those if you're just able to get nothing but the structures. Next up, we have 3 copies of Radian, the multi-dimensional kaiju. This is just the better of the kaijus to have in the deck. You can summon it to your opponent's field just by tributing a monster and they can't respond to it, so that's pretty good going second because you can tribute off Baron and Sword Soul Chi-Chow, so it really helps with that aspect. Or you can just tribute off DPE, like, it's just super good. Next up, we have 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More. Once again, this is a going second version, so just being able to just negate your opponent's board and then summon your Fallen of Albaz to fusion with theirs into your Mirror Jade and then get rid of 2 cards off of just Fallen of Albaz is really strong. Next up, we have 3 copies of Branded Fusion. This card is cracked. It's insane. So it lets you fusion from the deck if you're using a Fallen of Albaz, and you can only activate 1 per turn. So if they negate the activation, you can activate a second one. So it's a pretty solid card. This card is so good, but sometimes it just loses to Ash Blossom, but at the same time, that's what the next card is for. We're playing 3 copies of Branded Lost. This card is super slept on, y'all. So what it does is it prevents your effects that fusion summon from being negated, and then also whenever you fusion summon, you get to add a Fallen of Albaz or a monster that lists it from your deck to your hand. So it's basically a magical meltdown that searches once per turn. So that's crazy to me. I don't know about you guys. And then also you can recycle it back with Retribution. So your opponent can't even ash you when you activate Lost and then activate Branded Fusion. And then you're going to get to search for your Brigade Mercuria, which is a negate. So you have to max out on 3 because it just helps you play around hand traps or monster negates if they have it. Like if you activate this and they have Baron, most of the time they have to force the Baron or else you're going to drop Mirror Jade, and then you can just swing into Baron and then blow up their board. Or even force the negate with Baron. Next up we have 2 copies of Branded in White. Branded in White is like Miracle Fusion for this deck, and also if you send it to the graveyard with Albion while Albion's in the graveyard, since Albion is actually a Fallen of Albaz while it's in the graveyard, it'll actually reset itself to your side of the field, which is just super powerful in my opinion. And for the 1-of spells, we run 1 Branded Bond. Once again, we can toolbox this from our deck, so we're not really worried about drawing it too much. And it also helps us recur our Fallen of Albaz engine, which is just super powerful. Next up, we have 1 Called by the Grave. This is just to help us this just gives us like a 4th card to interact with DPE, Ash Blossom, and everything else. So it's pretty important. Next up, probably the strongest trap in the deck. 3 copies of Branded Retribution. You guys might not want to max out on this, but if you're me, you do. And the reason is because this is what lets us recur and grind out against all the other decks. Like, other versions of this deck are going to have more than we do because this is a budget deck. So being able to use its effect in the graveyard to banish itself and add back our Branded Fusion is super important. In addition to that, it's also a Solemn Warning. So sometimes we can win just because we've been using Mirror Jade and grinding out with them, and we can stop them from playing with this card. It can also stop DPE Engraved, which is just super powerful. And then for the 1-ofs, we run 1 Branded Sword. This is kind of like a late game clutch card because we can activate it and then summon any number of tokens equal to the number that we banished. So that's pretty important. And then while it's in the graveyard, we can target one of our banished monsters that is Fallen of Albaz and then add it to our hand. So like in the late game, we can send this with Albion and then use it to banish it and get back our Fallen of Albaz and use the Fallen of Albaz to fusion summon. And then finally, this is like the tech card, because sometimes like people will make you go first when they realize they're playing against a going second version. And then also, even if you do go second, like let's say you break their board with Dark Ruler No More, this is Judgment of the Branded. You can target one of your fusion monsters and kill anything that's just as strong or stronger than it on the field. So you can just nuke your opponent's board. Like sometimes their DPE makes your monsters weaker, so you can flip this, target your fusion monster who's like at 2100, and then nuke their board, and when they try to chain DPE, you can chain something to stop it, and that's just really good sometimes. And it also can reset itself off of Albion, so that's definitely really strong too. Or if you discard it off of Fallen of Albaz, it resets itself on the end phase. So I really think this card is slept on for the pure build, and I really think you guys should try it. Excuse me. So that's it for the main deck. It's a 40 card main deck because we're trying to stay as consistent as possible. So let's talk about the extra. Okay, so first of all, the MVP, 3 Mirror Jade. This card is so strong, y'all. Being able to Dark Ruler No More your opponent's board and then fuse into this with Fallen of Albaz just leaves your opponent thinking like why they even printed this card. And then also when what it does is it lets you send your fusion monsters that list Fallen of Albaz from your extra deck to the graveyard to banish a monster, and that doesn't target, y'all. So this card can even out Dragoon, and on top of that, when it dies during the end phase, you get to destroy all of their monsters. Like, that's insane to me. Like, just being able to use its effect, banish, crash into a Baron, and then destroy all their monsters is just absolutely cracked in my opinion. And then also, like, it's just super hard to deal with. Your opponent has to really play smart and play around this, or else they just get got. Next up, we have the 3 copies of Albion. Albion is super good too, y'all. So it lets you fusion summon when it's summoned, and that's pretty good on its own. But the fact that if you send it with your Mirror Jade to banish a card, and then you can set any branded spell or trap from your deck, that's crazy good, y'all. Like, you can set your branded Lost if you need to. You can set anything you really need to. and just interact with your opponent in the most dirty of ways. Like, you can set your branded sword, your branded retribution, whatever you need to make them wish that this card wasn't printed. Next up, this is probably the third best card in your extra deck. Super powerful. 3 copies of Titanic Clad. So Titanic Clad doesn't just add from deck to hand, it'll actually special summon from your deck, so you can summon the Fallen of Albaz on their end phase and then fuse with their monsters. In addition to that, the turn it's summoned, it's unaffected by card effects, and it gains 100 attack equal to its materials times 100. So if you use something really, really tall, like, I don't know, their Mirror Jade or whatever, that's a level 8, your monster's he's gonna get a plus 1200 if you only use Fallen of Albaz. So he's gonna be sitting at 3700. So that's pretty strong. 2 copies of Lubellion. You only need 2. You can even cut this card to 1. Like, it's really strong, don't get me wrong, because it lets you recycle your Fallen of Albaz, but Albion is just better. Next, we have 2 Brigade. This is so that we can search Mercuria on the end phase, and it can also special summon just like the Titanic Clad. And then finally, we have 2 copies of Sprint. Sprint is really slept on, y'all, because it can move columns and then destroy all face-up cards in the column. So that's pretty good, too, because it can help you break boards if you use Dark Ruler no more. So that's it for the extra deck, guys. 3 Titanic Clad, 3 of Albion, and 3 of the other, and then just 2. That's, like, in my opinion, the best ratios. So for the side, this is just mostly based off your locals, but the best side deck cards I think that are in the structure deck are D-Barrier, There Can Only Be One, Warning Point, Waking the Dragons, an extra copy of the Golden Sword Soul, and 3 copies of the Thunderstrike Kaiju. Sometimes this card really helps. It can actually help a lot in the Fluanderies matchup. And then this card also is just sometimes you need to break more than just what your Radiant can give you. And then this is so you can smoke screen going second. So that way, like, you can smoke screen, take out the going second cards, and go first, and then set yourself up with Judgment of the Branded in this. So yeah, I think this is the most optimal side you can do. And then depending on your locals is whether or not you play 3 Waking or 3 Warning Point. So yeah, that's it for the deck profile, guys. I really hope you enjoy it as much as I do. This deck is so good, y'all. Like, really take into consideration of how strong this deck is. And if you guys want, I'm going to upload a pretty cool combo video. And then make sure after this, guys, click the link in my description to go check out Dragon Rider Games. They're running big ticket prize card tournaments all the time. There's a Pot of Prosperity tournament today. Like, just to friggin' win a Pot of Prosperities by playing Dueling Book, y'all. Why wouldn't you want to do that? I would. So yeah, make sure you guys go ahead, click that link. Make sure you follow Dragon Rider Games on Facebook. And make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Thank you guys so much for getting to 300 subs. It's Gores, signing off.